Hello, everyone. We are on the podcast today with our friend Kevin. And yeah, Kevin's going to join us today and have a fun conversation. And real quick, before we get into our conversation, just want to mention youngyouorganics.com, where you can go online and you can find this white sage smudge spray to use and to invoke the spirits with that are in this smudge spray to balance and harmonize your energy. And yeah, just smell pleasant, ward off whatever it is that might need warding off if you need anything warding off. Yeah, that's what I got. Melissa, anything to add with the white sage
Um,
smudge spray?
no, I think you did a great job today. It is a very useful product, and I think it also can help you with your creativity in terms of how do you want to use this spray to enhance and improve your life or spiritual practice or whatever kind of practice that you like.
Yeah, it's great for creativity and invocation and just using that uh, type of capability. Just to even just simply say, like, hey, I invoke the head medicine spirits of sage to cleanse the entirety of my space physically and energetically. It's a good one.
And I use smudge spray because you don't have to burn anything, which is great. You just spray
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
some people don't
for
like
what
the
it's worth.
smell of the smoke.
Yeah.
So
It is a very
go get
convenient
yourself some.
product.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, Kevin has been on the podcast earlier. You could find his earlier episode. I forget exactly which one it is, and he introduced himself on there. But for the new listeners, Kevin, could you give us a little bit of a introduction with what you're all about?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Kevin Kaiser, and my life's work is really devoted to self-awareness. So helping people to um, free themselves, learn how to free themselves from inside, so that they can live a more meaningful life, a more deeply purposeful, um, joyful life. And my background is I worked for about a decade in finance and then a decade in entertainment management. So I worked with really successful, like high achieving people who are pretty unhappy with life. And I like to say that my job description was always just a front. It was a cover story for what I was really doing, which was having big conversations with my clients around, who am I and why am I here and what blocks my like the creative expression of my truest self. And so I'm kind of like I'm one of these closet mystics who happens to, use business as a way to business, like the business realm is kind of like my canvas, and I paint like mysticism and spirituality into it. So I write. I have a newsletter called The Rewilded Soul on Substack, and then I coach and guide people into figuring out why they're unhappy and how they can find fulfillment in life. In a nutshell, that's what I do.
In a nutshell, you got the business and the interwoven mysticism.
Yeah, I
It's a
mean, I
beautiful
think for
thing.
me, there is no like the split between sacred and secular is just made up, right? Like everything is sacred. There's only what is sacred and what is desecrated, right? So that it's like everything is sacred, and you can even eat, and you can treat it as if it's not, and so that doesn't make it profane. It's just you just kind of desecrated what was sacred, and business is one of those things. It's a it's a creative expression of humanity, just like music is, and like my wife is a painter, and what some of my clients do with business is their artwork. So yeah, just creative expression.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there is so important for not only this conversation, but for I think a larger conversation, and that everything is in fact sacred, everything is in fact spiritual, and
Right.
everything isn't like can in fact or is actually a creative act. And when we start bringing more awareness to those things, I mean, I think the potential and the kind of like change and the direction we can go in, like if more people were just kind of operating with that understanding in their, I mean, in their, not even in their everyday life, but even maybe just more moments of recognizing that on a daily basis.
Right.
Because I know I still have to remind myself like all the time, really, even
Yeah.
though I deeply, deeply know that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so I grew up in a very religious home. So I grew up in a very evangelical Christian home. And so
Mm.
spirituality was always a really big part of life. And I was always more of a mystic in the midst of all of that. I just knew that the container of religion was just that. It was a container. It's finite human beings trying to explain something that was too big for the mind to hold. We use words to try and describe these infinite things. And so I've just always been like really interested in what you just said, that everything is spiritual, but even beyond that, like I in the past year or so, I've even stopped using the word spirituality because I consider myself more of an essentialist is how I describe myself now. It's what is the essence of reality? Because even the word spirituality like conjures up we all have these frameworks, right? So there's like shamanism. A Christian will hear, oh, that's Christian spirituality. A Buddhist will hear, oh, that's Buddhist spirituality. What I'm interested in is what is the essential nature of reality? What is the essence of life? What can be directly recognized and experienced here now? Um, because that's all there is, and so that's actually something that's helped me translate because I've been a student of all of these different traditions all my life, at least for the past 25 years, where I was really focused on my own my own journey of experience. And like to me, the biggest question is, who am I? Or even what am I? What am I fundamentally? And what we call spirituality is just the hero's journey of trying to discover that, because Joseph Campbell's hero's journey is like it's the blueprint for all of the stories and myths that we have in humanity. The hero, something happens, the hero is thrust out of their world. They find a sage along the way who gives them some information. And then they go and, save the village, slay the dragon, get the treasure, whatever. But the hero's journey is never about that. It's actually never about the treasure or slaying the dragon. It's about the hero discovering who they really are. you know, Neo just, Mr. Anderson discovering he's Neo, Luke Skywalker discovering that he's a Jedi, those kinds of things. And to me, this is all that we're doing is we're just trying to answer the question of who are we and what are we? Which is really the same as asking what is reality or what is God, what is being, what is existence.
Yeah,
It's
what
all
is
kind
the
of the same
essence?
thing.
Yeah. We get taught this separation mythology pretty much from inside the womb.
Oh yeah.
And, it creates a lot of personal struggle for us when we live within the separation mythology itself and we think then that we're somehow separate from God or source or divinity or spirit. And that hero's journey, it definitely seems to be the releasing of the separation mythology to really understand that you were never really separate from divinity or God or spirit or source to begin with. And so then it just becomes this, infinite and eternal playground in which we could just have fun. And, we were talking about before how, through the year, when you become aware of all of these things, when you become aware really, acutely of all of your own habits that, you might want to try to separate out from yourself. But I think, if you if you take ownership of it and you don't want to continue with those habits and you transmutate those habits into something that's, better serving of your health and well-being, that, you know, it just becomes a fun journey in exploration and of really, you know, what serves your highest self.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the key behind it all, especially in in our modern society, is we're so distracted, and our essence is so covered up with these ideas of who we think we are, or who we think we're who we should be, who we think others think we should be. And I think things like, you know, plant medicine ceremonies, psychedelics, or like the darkness retreat that I did, it's all in an effort to peel away what is not essential to our being. It's like what distracts us from the core truth of our being, so that we can, it's not even like returning to yourself. um because like if I asked you to stand up and take a step toward yourself, could you do it? Like you already are, right, what you're seeking. That's what all these spiritual traditions say. um we're just like we're just like in this daydream, hypnotized by all these distractions. And the way I describe it is like, it's like the guy who drives the same way to work every day for 20 years. And then one morning he kind of comes to himself in the parking lot and doesn't remember the commute that he just drove to get there,
Mm-hmm.
because he just went on autopilot. And then like that's the story of our whole life. And waking up is just like snapping out of that autopilot mode. And then that's the access point to, your true beingness. And so all of these things that we do, even talking about this stuff, right? That's what we're doing now, is just kind of reminding each other and ourselves, what is essential.
Yeah, and conversations like this I find to be absolutely essential to, you know, recognizing all of what we're talking about right now, and, you know, really setting the intention to learn about the true nature of what it means to be alive, what it means to be a being and be a being on this planet and in this
Mm-hmm.
universe, and, you know, just all of it really is fascinating. And yeah, you know, you mentioned distraction. It's really interesting that you mentioned that uh, maybe about a month ago, Melissa was a sitter for me for a mushroom ceremony. And afterwards, I really got very tuned in on how much distraction there actually is all around us, like the phone and how you use it. It's not the phone that it's the distraction itself. It's how you use the phone. Are you using it to distract yourself? Are you using the TV to distract yourself? Are you using the music to distract yourself? What are you using to distract yourself? And then for me, it's been about just stopping that. And even if that's sometimes just to, like, I don't know, take 20 minutes to sit and stare out the window at the tree and just really, you know, be in touch with my own thinking and not have any kind of external sources. And then redefining my relationship with the phone or with the screen to be something that's ultimately going to be positively affirmative for me. And so
Yeah.
using that then for, you know, educational purposes, connecting with others that are, you know, like-minded in intention, to really want to understand what's the truth of this reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, really what you're talking about is a like an integrative kind of approach to life, where you are, through your experience, you're gaining some insight, right? Some insight into your life. And then you go the next step and you understand that insight. Like, why do I do this? Right. And then the next step beyond that is taking new conscious actions, new conscious choices. Um, because, without all three, like if you just have insight, that's just information. It doesn't really do you any good unless you can unpack it a little bit, understand it a little more deeply, and then use that to like catalyze these new conscious choices, new conscious actions, right? It's like the guy driving to work. he's going to take a different way to work. He's going to be focused. He's going to be present to his life. And so, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about. These things are, mushroom journeys, I mean, anything, just a way to open yourself to insight and understanding. But why? So that you can, be more of yourself. You can be more awake, aware, and free, right?
Right. And being true self. And I think once get and dig to the layer of the true self, I mean, the true self really has the desires to just, live positively. And I don't think anyone at their true self is like, I want to live a negative life. I'm going to show up and give
Right.
my worst today. Fuck everyone. Like, done
Right.
with this. No one's doing that. I think at their core, I think there's just a bunch of like distractions, as we say.
Yeah. Yeah, totally true. Totally true. And that's why the thing that has been so important to me in my own life is seeking out opportunities, um, however strange or maybe even like uncomfortable, to strip away all the distractions. Because the truth is, you you take you with you everywhere you go. But we're uncomfortable with we're uncomfortable with ourselves in a lot of ways, right? All of the things that we don't want to face. And so we, numb out in lots of different ways, right? Netflix and, whatever it might be. We all have our things, but that's why it's really important for me to like seek out these experiences, like in nature. Nature is a really important aspect of like remembering who I am and what I am, even if it's just taking a walk in the woods, going off and doing a retreat or something like that. It's just peeling away all of the things that, it's not that the world is distracting me and tempting me away. It's me. Like,
Mhm.
it's my own unwillingness to face myself in the mirror and, you know, have a reckoning with all of my creations. Which is it's the only way to be free. Um, but it's not always comfortable. Yeah.
You're bringing up themes that we were recently working with in the Blue Morpho Mystery School of self-sabotage and reworking your mental patterning to be able to break the code in language and in behavior of the self-sabotage itself. And so just, simple things like looking at the mirror and saying, I love myself and I accept myself and I love myself and respect myself are really good ways to be able to break that patterning of self-sabotage so that you can then, like you were saying, with gaining the insight and then using the decision and the engagement then to personally transform
Yeah.
out of those patterns and behaviors.
Yeah. And even how like language uses us, and how language shapes how we view things. Even what you just said there, I love myself. You've actually just created a subject object relationship. There's an I, and then there's a self that the I loves. Which are you?
It's
Right? So like,
interesting.
our language is naturally constructed around, like you said, separation, right? This duality. And and so for most people, and I hate making generalizations, but this is true. From my perspective, most people, um, they actually don't know who and what they are. They don't really know that they are the I within which the self appears. And also the self is like the expression of the I, right? The consciousness, the awareness that you actually are. And it's actually really, really simple, because it's our actual direct experience. You don't have to go do a retreat or take psychedelics or fast or do yoga. Like, everybody has the direct experience right now of, I exist. Like, I'm here and I'm aware that I'm here, and everything appears within that awareness. even this idea of myself that I hate or myself that I love, right? Um, we just don't question. It's so close to us that we don't question. Well, who is the I, and what is the self, right? And I think that is the maybe the epicenter, like that's the main point of all spirituality, that all of these traditions are pointing us back to, like, this is your true nature, your essential nature. um it's not who you, it's not, it's a paradox, it's not who you think you are, but at the same time you are only who you think you are.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah. But if you strip out language, who are you? It's just like this felt sense. It's just this beingness, this aliveness, sense of aliveness.
Yeah, I
Mm.
think we had this conversation actually. We were talking about how I used to ask myself like, "What am I?" And I was like, "Oh, that was I was asking the wrong question." Because it's not a what, right? It's like the sensation or the feeling or
Yeah.
whatever it is, that like quality of the awareness, like
Yeah.
the tangibleness of it that we could actually kind of like sense.
Yeah. It's non-conceptual, ultimately, because even even if I have a thought, that thought appears in awareness. That
Mm.
thought arises in consciousness and is made of consciousness. Right. But, it's like, and so I led this men's retreat over the weekend. We were just sitting around, just talking, sitting around the pool talking. And I pointed out to one of the guys, because he was talking about like his emotions and like how it really brought him down, and he was feeling depressed. And I pointed out to him that just 30 minutes ago, he had been actually laughing and kind of happy. And I pointed out that I asked him, where did that feeling go? And he had to stop and think. He's like, it just kind of evaporated. And then I was upset. And I said, well, that feeling of upset is it gonna last forever? Well, no, it won't last forever. It's like, okay, so those things come and go. The thoughts come, the thoughts go. The feelings come, the feelings go. But you do not come and go. It's like that old metaphor of the sky and the clouds, right? The clouds appear in the sky, and the sky is untouched completely. It remains. And it's really just that, you know, it really is that. We're just distracted. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you put down the distractions?
Um, well, you can do it a couple different ways. You can, well, in both ways, you have to be intentional. So you first of all have to decide, I'm going to be present. I'm going to be aware in my life. Um, I'm going to be intentional, right? I'm going to be here and now, which sounds really, really hard for a lot of people, um, because we're constantly thinking about the past and, projecting into the future. So the first thing is um, you can build it into your day. So this is where things like presence practices um, come in really handy. Meditation, mindfulness, breath work, everything that draws your attention back to the present moment, because the mind is what creates time. Um, I mean, without the thought about something that happened in the past or something that might happen in the future, where is time? There, like, it's just made up. So you can build these things into your day, and this is what most self-help or most spiritual development teachings are about today. The second thing is like what you want, like what the three of us do sometimes, which is you want to carve out a specific place and time where you can cut away all distractions and find out the answer for yourself, right? So you do a mushroom journey. Um, I went and did a 4-day darkness retreat in January, where I like literally cut away all distraction, including sensory distraction. So it was like in pitch darkness for 4 days, um, where there was nowhere to go, there was nowhere to escape to. Couldn't escape into my phone, couldn't turn on the TV, couldn't go make a cup of coffee. Where you're just refusing to escape, you're refusing to run from yourself. And so you can do that, lots of different ways. Take regular retreats by yourself, or seeking out other people who can guide you through those things. So that's how I do it in my life. But I have to do those things over and over and over and over again because, I'm 48, and even if I'm aware, I clearly recognize who I am, I still have decades and decades of embedded reflex in my central nervous system, in the human organism, that just doesn't always magically disappear. So I think a lot of spiritual practice is around that. It's retraining the human animal, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
retraining
agree
the
with
human
that a lot.
animal.
Yeah, I think feeling is a really important thing because kind of what we talked about, that's the essence, and that's what we're typically distracting ourselves from.
The
Is
feeling
like
of,
the sensations in the body. Like this is uncomfortable, but if I go onto my phone, I'm gonna be like,
oh yeah,
I'm gonna be in the zone. Or if I eat, I'll be focusing on that. Because I think that's
yeah,
where most of these patterns that you're talking about, like that's where they are. They're in our body. We have to really like learn how to excavate those.
I totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, we're always like seeking pleasure or seeking to escape pain, and I think they're the same thing. If you're, if, if you're if you're seeking out pleasure, it's because you want to avoid pain. And so yeah, it's all of those things. And most I'm really grateful that things like um somatic therapy, um central all of the things around central nervous system mastery and embodiment are really becoming mainstream, because I don't know, I was never raised with any kind of awareness around, like, here's how to sense what's happening in my body, right? There's sensations, and then emotions or sensations wrapped in stories, that have memories attached to them. And I was just never taught how to deal with that stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, we have so many tools available to us now. I mean, just online, that can help you really become more of a master of that.
Yeah, it's important for people to learn how to master that for themselves. Since like you said, I mean, I wasn't taught, I think maybe more so now, younger children are taught that, but then also I don't know how well adults in their lives can actually further support that experience, so many of the
Yeah,
experiences we might receive are more so people modeling the distraction or modeling like maybe not the validating that you kind of need to really be able to have the experience of your feelings. Oh no, like don't be scared, or oh don't be
yeah,
silly, or don't worry about that, or boys don't cry, or like, whatever the thing that person's going to tell you to then be like, oh wait, right, maybe
yeah,
this experience isn't right. Maybe what I'm noticing or feeling or sensing, I shouldn't be feeling that way.
yeah. Right, right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm a good Midwestern boy. I grew up in Indiana, good Midwestern family, and nobody ever talked about their their feelings. You know, there wasn't a high emotional intelligence, um, really, in probably almost everybody, most of the people in my life. And so I really didn't even start learning that language. I mean, it's like learning a different language, probably until my 30s. And I
Yeah.
mean, think about that. You know, I mean, psychologists say that, by the time you're 7 years old, you're prime operating system is pretty much solidified, right?
Hmm.
And some of them say it's even earlier than that, like 18 months to 2 years. And so,
I haven't heard that early.
yeah, well, it's like around attachment theory.
Oh, attachment.
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, because they say, like how you attach or don't attach to people really comes from that first, I think it's like 18 months of life.
Yeah, that makes more
Um,
sense.
so it makes sense because however your parents parented you is going to, keep installing that software, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, those, like you're saying, those first patterns or reflexes that we're always trying to kind of unwind in ourselves to
Yeah.
form new ones that make more sense or are more truthful or more reflective of like what is actually going on here, what really is the essence, what is my
Right.
essence, versus
Yeah.
this is just kind of what I experienced and what I made from that experience with lack of
Right.
know-how of what I was doing and lack of know-how what the people around me were doing. I don't
Right.
know if I said that right, but the people around us didn't have the know-how either, really.
Right. And that's been a big thing for me. Um, it's just like, the story of Jesus, when he's dying, he looks at the people that are killing him and he says, forgive them for they know not what they do. And like, I have to look at the other people in my life because everybody is just operating at the level of awareness that they're capable of. So my parents were messed up because their parents were messed up, right? Like they passed along their own trauma, they passed along their own woundedness and like inability to um, be anything other than what they were. And I'm the same way. I mean, having a daughter, I have a 19-year-old daughter who's in college, and man, I'd say kids are a great mirror. I mean, they will reflect back to you your own stuff, and she does. And I can see clearly, like, oh man, I'm just now like connecting the dots and seeing how, oh, I've perpetuated my own, like my father's woundedness or his dad's woundedness, right? There are these lineages, like these things that get passed along that are partly genetic. I mean, they're actually literally embedded in us, epigenetic. Um, and then there's just the conditioning side of things. And, to me, that's what awakening is. It's you know, recognizing those things for what they are so that you can consciously make be differently, you know be more true. Yeah, that's all ultimately pretty simple, I think. We just like confuse
We
ourselves.
definitely like to make things complex.
Yeah.
It looks
Yeah.
simple when you look out the window, right? Like nature is just going with the flow. And then we have humans here, we're talking about it for the I mean, this is
Right.
just it's only been a half an hour and look like how far in we went.
Yeah, exactly.
Making things just so complicated.
Yeah, we do. But I mean, I think that's also the really beautiful thing
Yeah, it's
uh
fun.
about being human, right? Because we get to, you know I mean, we get to create, we get to co-create, and so it's a beautiful thing, but it's also the thing that like causes the most madness in us, right? So
Really does.
it's a pretty cool gig though, being human.
Yeah, for the most part, it's pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be
It's
great if it weren't for all the other people.
screw you guys.
Right. It's like relationships. It'd be so much easier if it weren't for all the people involved.
Is that one of the realizations you had on your darkness retreat? I'm better off just living in the dark.
I had that one a few years ago. Yeah. I tell you, the 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 biggest realization I had from the darkness was, it was maybe the first day. So I got there, and it's, first of all, for those who don't know what darkness retreats are, I mean, it is literally what it sounds like. You are going into a space that, like in my case, it was an earth berm cabin, I stayed at this place called Sky Cave Retreats, run by my friend Scott Berman. And you basically go into this cabin that is, once you close the door and blow out the candle, you are in total, absolute blackness. Um, if you, the only thing I could describe it to is if you've ever taken a tour deep into a cave, right, where they had the lights and then say, okay, we're going to turn off the lights. It's that. Because when the lights go off, the light leaves with almost an audible sound. Like it's almost breathtaking because it's, and you can feel the darkness. And it's not scary at all. I mean, to me, it felt like being wrapped in this really soft blanket. But so I went in on a Saturday and I came out whatever that is, 4 days later, 5 days later. And so the first full day, I don't even know what time it was, but you know, I'd been meditating, I'd been doing my breath work, and like I pulled out all the tools. I was doing all the things. And Scott had told me, he's like, you're going to pull out all your tools. At some point, your tools are going to fail you. And you'll see what I mean. And it didn't take long. So it was sometime during the first day. For whatever reason, my body just freaked out. Like it felt like having a panic attack. And I tried to breathe through it. I couldn't breathe through it. I tried to stretch through it, did like yoga, didn't work. And I did the only thing that I could think of to do because I was thinking, this is a central nervous system thing happening. So there was a tub in the room. So in the dark, I fill up this tub with really, really cold water, and I get in the cold water, kind of like a makeshift cold plunge. And it just shifted, it calmed down my entire system. And I got out and I got dressed and, was just kind of sitting in the dark, thinking, wow, this is really stupid. Like here I am locked in this room in the dark. This feels like hell. And as that thought was kind of like leaving me, I had this really clear realization and I laughed out loud. It so surprised me. I laughed out loud and I went, holy shit. Nobody is doing this to me. I'm doing this to myself. The door's not locked. I can leave. There are 2 light switches in the room. If I wanted to, I could turn on the lights. And I just, in an instant, I saw how I create all of my suffering in my entire life. And I also create all of the joyfulness in my entire life. And it's a switch. And nobody is doing it to me. I'm doing it to myself. That was the last time I felt any kind of anxiety or any kind of pressure during that retreat, because I had decided and I would say it out loud. I was like a crazy man. I mean, walking around in the dark saying, I choose to be here. I am choosing my own happiness. I need nothing else to be happy. And it gave me this really deep appreciation just for living. And one of the things Scott does whenever people are done with their darkness retreats, he has you put on a mindfold, like a blindfold kind of thing, before he leads you out of the cabin and outside into the light. So you put on this eye mask, he leads you outside, sits you down in this Adirondack chair, and then he records you video as you take off your mask. And he posts clips of these on the Sky Cave Retreats Instagram. And so I was watching it yesterday. My reaction that he recorded of me, And it made me cry because I could sense, I could remember what that felt like. And when I take off my mask, I just laughed and I said, man, I love living. I just love living. And there was just something that was um, so radically simple and beautiful about just existence itself. And I mean, it sounds really simple because it is. Um, and you're sitting up on this ridge. It's in the mountains of Southern Oregon. So it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And, the first thing I saw was just this beautiful vista of forest, and there was fog drifting through the trees and it was raining a little bit. And off in the distance, I could see some of the mountains. And the thought hit me that nothing that I'm seeing here is concerned at all about what's happening in the world. The trees don't care what's happening to the stock market. The river that I can hear nearby isn't concerned about the election. Um, you know, life simply is. And I didn't feel apart from it. It was almost like I could zoom out. And as I zoomed out, like this person called Kevin, it just became obvious, almost like if you zoomed out and saw a herd of deer. Like you just see that, oh, they're part of nature. They're part of what's happening. I saw myself as just part of what's happening, entirely unique and distinct. And, um, the sort of one time only expression of life that was me, but it was not separate from anything else that was happening. And it wasn't like this, like it wasn't profound in the sense of it was mystical. It was the most ordinary experience ever. Like it was just ordinary. Like, oh wow. And it was really beautiful in its ordinariness. And, you know, um, it felt very blissful. And I went from there to visited my daughter at college, that day, got in the car, drove, saw her, was just living life. And everything was just more vibrant. Like I was more aware of everything. I was more present to everything because I had literally stripped away all distraction from my life. And what remained was this very settled, um, obvious awareness of who and what I actually am. And not only that, of who and what everyone is as well. So and then I got home, got back into the normal flow of life. And I became very aware of, like, I call it grippiness. There's like a friction that sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's not so subtle, of um, recurring thought patterns, feelings, dysfunction in relationships. Um, my wife and I both had the pleasure of getting COVID after I got home from my darkness retreat. So I went from this like mountaintop kind of experience to, okay, now how awake, aware, and free are you if you have COVID? You know, and so it just kind of reframed life in general for me. But I mean, spending 4 days in total darkness, it it is a because I've done a lot of different things, right? Like sweat lodges, sacred plant medicine ceremonies, all of it. This is the most ordinary kind of modality. But I would say I don't know, it was maybe the most profound in its simplicity, because I can still access that same sense of being awareness now as I'm talking to you as I could in the darkness. And I think that every single modality, every single thing that we pursue or try out to find ourselves, that like that's it's the same endpoint. Yeah. So I highly recommend it. Darkness isn't good. You can't escape. There's nowhere to go.
That sounds actually like something I would be interested in doing. It sounds like you got much benefit from it, as you were saying, just, realizing your own divine nature and just the complexities melting away.
Yeah. You become very aware of it's a physiological thing of how just like an addict, like a friend of mine, he's trying to kick nicotine, a nicotine addiction. And it's that, that grippiness, that urge in you to get that thing, right? To get that hit. Um, well, we all have that. And it may not be, just drugs, nicotine, alcohol, but dopamine, checking TikTok, which at the same time he's trying to beat a TikTok addiction. But there's so many things like that in our life that we're just on autopilot, and you become painfully aware of all of those things. Um, and what is embodied in you, right? Like I felt this physical sense, like this physical urge to get away from myself, right? To distract myself, to find something. And that's why Scott told me, you're going to pull out all of your tricks, all of your tools, you know, but those two, ultimately, you have to give those up, because I would feel that grippiness. It's like, oh, what I need to do is I need to avoid this discomfort through breath work. I need to avoid this discomfort through meditation. I need to avoid this discomfort, right? By jumping in a cold bath, versus whatever arises, love that, embrace that, allow that, ask it what you're meant to learn through it. Um, which is the simplest thing in the world and also the hardest at the same time. Yeah.
Self-love and self-acceptance, it goes beyond just words.
Yeah. Right. And ultimately, I mean, that's exactly right. It's beyond words, it's beyond concept. Um, it's this direct recognition and direct experience of yourself. It's like, it's like if I ask you to describe what does it taste like? What is eating an avocado like? What does it taste like? Right? It's easier to tell somebody, just go try one. Just go eat an avocado and have the direct experience for yourself. It's the same thing, right? Spirituality and all of these different things that we do are trying to describe what it's like to eat an avocado, or like what it's like to drink a glass of water, right? But you can be in the desert and you can think about water all you want and you can still die of thirst. And you can describe to somebody what it's like to take a sip of water, or you can just hand them a glass of water and then they can try it for themselves. And then there's no explanation needed. That's why we seek out all these experiences, I think, so that you can know them directly.
Mm.
Yeah. It's pretty simple, I think. But what do I
I mean, I think that, the direct experience is ultimately the ultimate spirituality because, no one else can really tell you anything different. I think it's really cool when we have, direct experience and we can then relate to people from that standpoint. And we can say like, yeah, I had a similar type of experience. And then we could relate on both of our direct experiences. But I think it's also equally as beautiful when two people have the experience uniquely of the same thing, and then both have two unique experiences that could
yeah.
be very different from each other. And, in the realm of spirituality, I think you always have to go with your own personal direct experience of source or of the universe or divinity, whatever kind of words you really want to wrap around it. But I think the ultimate thing is, that you're the one having the direct experience of it. And I think that's really what matters for you. That's what's essential and, really leads to fulfillment of that essential being.
Yeah. And if you think about it, you are you are always only trusting your own authority anyway. So if for example, like if I decide I don't really trust myself, but I trust Nick and Melissa's experiences to be true, right? So they've had these beautiful mystical experiences, and I'm going to trust their experience. Well, who is it that's deciding to trust you? It's me. I'm still trusting my own direct authority and ability to know what to trust in life. I'm just right. So I'm always trusting myself no matter what. Even if I'm deciding, oh, I can't trust myself, I can trust you. Well, in order to trust you, I first have to trust myself to trust you. Right. And so many of these things, like what you're saying, Nick, is you go and have these experiences so that you can see for yourself. Oh, I don't have to be a secondhand person. I don't have to go to somebody else to find out what I really think, what I really believe, what is true. I can know it for myself directly. That doesn't mean that that others won't come along and invite you down a different path. And that's super important. I would never be where I am if it weren't for lots and lots of other people. Um, but yeah, it's so true. It's like all about direct knowing.
It makes me really think about I've been framing things in terms of archetype a lot lately. And so for me, it's making me think about really stepping into the role of the adult archetype, where you don't really need someone else's permission to go do something, or you don't really need someone else to go tell you what to do. And it reminds me sort of like passage of right, of like moving from, one role to the next role, and all of these things in which we were talking about, and just valuing your direct experience with spirit or source, and
Yeah.
owning it, and giving love to yourself, and accepting yourself and respecting yourself, and ultimately, I think that's just being kind to yourself
Yeah.
throughout these experiences too, even when things come up that might suck. And I think, Melissa brings up a very valid point in just feeling that in the body, and like, where is that located in the body? How are you feeling it? And I think ultimately that's what will process everything, is the body.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not about escaping it. It's not about escaping the body, right? Like, because I've talked to many people, and I've actually gone through this kind of phase myself, where I just wanted to escape being human, right? And so I want to go play in the ethers. I want to, astral travel. I want to be all right, like in these higher vibrational states. Um, but I'm here, like I'm in a body, and it's all made of the same essence. And I think that from my perspective, um, that's actually the truth of like what people call Christ consciousness, where you're knowing yourself fully as this infinite essence that's also located in a unique individual expression of life. It's both and, right? And
Yeah.
and they're expressions of each other, and they need each other.
Yeah.
So such a cool
It,
thing.
it's like we're all part of this like infinite eternal field of consciousness that but yet the way you experience it is in like the one central location of your body.
Yeah.
Because even when you are having those astral projections or whatever experience you're having on whatever plant medicine, like ultimately, like it's you're in your body.
Yeah.
Like the body is still here. And once the body goes, I mean, we're having a different experience. I don't know what that is, but
Yeah.
it's not this. Like it's not this human experience.
Right.
Yeah, so it's
Right.
like you need both to have what we're having right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and what a cool idea. You know, what a cool idea it is, like physical reality creation. It's just a cool idea
Yeah.
that it actually exists. Like, so this retreat I did was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So, so I went down to the beach the other day. Hadn't been on a beach in a while. And I was standing there, I was like, man, the ocean is a cool idea. If you think about it, it is a cool idea. Like it's an imaginative creation. Like, man, this is all right. It really is. Yeah. All is well.
All is well.
All as well.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good point to wrap up, even though I would prefer not to. I know we are on a time schedule for today.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me. I can talk about this stuff all day long. So really
Wow.
appreciate how you guys show up in the world and the work you're doing. It's vital. So yeah, keep
Yeah,
doing
and
it.
thank you so much, Kevin, and same for
Likewise to you,
you.
Kevin.
Yeah, I love that experience you shared. I really felt like the ordinariness of it, I suppose, like as you were talking about it, it just felt like very kind of like grounded and simple.
It's always simple. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's always simple.
Yeah.
such a
We
good
just
thing to keep in
overcomplicate it.
mind.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that last bit about, your direct experience with Christ consciousness. It was very well put and very beautifully put and quite mind expanding. I always love talking and anything about Christ consciousness. JC's the dude.
Same here, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Love
thank you
some
guys
Jesus.
again.
Yeah,
Looking
thank you
forward to our
so
next
much,
one.
Kevin.
Yeah,
Definitely,
likewise. I can't
definitely.
wait.
Well, that's it for today, everybody. Thanks so much for watching, listening. Leave us all of the things, the comments. Let us know what you enjoyed hearing today. If you've ever done a darkness retreat, share this, subscribe. Did I say like? If I didn't, like it too. And thanks.